It's really quite fascinating to me how much emphasis Green Bay has put on trying to bolster that defensive side of the football. They've made several signings to bolster that defensive line, and now with getting Rashan Gary, they're definitely looking to try to get to the passer. They already went after guys like Zadarius Smith and Preston Smith, who are two guys who are very strong guys, and Rashan Gary's another one of those guys, the big, strong guy. While I typically don't put too much emphasis in the bench press, he was able to bench 27 reps, so that is pretty impressive. One of the reasons I like this pick is the fact that he really can play in any technique. He can really go anywhere on a defensive line if he's playing on the defensive line. And since Green Bay already has another guy in Zadarius Smith who can do that, this now means that they're going to have a ton of options, and it really opens up the playbook for defensive coordinators. Like, take a look at this first play, for example. And I know right off the bat, you probably will notice that some of the image quality on these are just not that great. For whatever reason, it's just really difficult to actually get, like, high-res college footage. I don't really know where you should go to get that, so if anyone has a suggestion, I'd love to hear it. I do know a website right now where I do watch college film, however, it's just not the best quality, so if anyone knows a better suggestion, let me know in the comments, I'd really appreciate it. It might also help you out, because you wouldn't have to watch these grainy videos. But anyways, I'm going to work with what I have for now. If we take a look at this play, what's going to happen is they're going to send their tight end out to the top half of the screen right over there. If you notice what Ohio State's doing here, this is actually something very unique, where they have a tight end who's on the top half of the screen, but he's basically lined up as if a left tackle would be lined up there. So Ohio State has 3 offensive linemen to the right of the center, and only 1 to the left of the center. It's definitely very interesting what they're doing here. So basically what they're going to do here is have the tight end run up to the top half of the screen, and they're going to have the offensive lineman who's to the left of the center block that edge rusher right over there. So this now means that Gary is actually going to be unblocked on this play, and there's actually a reason for that. The reason is because this is kind of a play fake. This is an RPO. And the way this play works, and I've explained it a million times, but I'll probably explain it a million more, is that if Gary runs to the outside, to the top half of the screen, to make sure that he doesn't allow the quarterback to run the ball to the top half of the screen, then all you have to do if you're Ohio State is just give the ball to the halfback. However, if Gary does run over to the middle of the screen to take away that halfback, then the quarterback keeps it and runs to the top half of the screen. That's basically the way this play is supposed to work. So if you notice right now, what is Gary doing? Well, he's definitely creeping over to the middle of the screen to try to take away a run. That's definitely where he kind of is right now. Not all the way, he hasn't completely fully sold out, which is good, but he definitely has made a decision to make sure he doesn't allow a straight up run. So now what do you do if you're Ohio State? What should you do in this situation? Well, you keep the ball and try to run around Gary. That's basically the way this play is going to work. And that can be no easy feat, because my good friend Stephen A. Smith told me that Dwayne Haskins is more of a runner than a thrower. However, Gary has such great footwork, and he gets off so quickly. I mean, he just basically pounces over like a lion and is able to make that tackle. It was a tremendous play by number 3, and I really think those plays like that are really what Green Bay likes when they drafted him. He really has solid footwork, although really it's his strength, I think, that makes him so effective. Like on a play like this, there he is in the 7 technique, and he's going to be breaking over around there, trying to get around that tackle. And so to make sure you do that, you are probably going to have to run over to the right side of the screen a bit to make sure that you can make the block easier. So now as you see, once this play develops, the tackle does move over, and now he seems to be in pretty good position to be making this block. I mean, basically blocking Gary straight on, and Gary is running to the right side of the screen, so if momentum just keeps going in this direction, you can easily just push Gary behind your quarterback and have no problem. It's a good start from this tackle, however, obviously I wouldn't be showing this play if this was just Gary getting beat straight up, because everyone gets beat straight up and that happens. Gary didn't really beat the tackle with footwork here, so instead what he's going to do is beat him with handwork. Basically what he's going to do right now is put his right arm right there on the left side of that tackle's body. Momentum is already going to the right side of the screen, so if he can also push him to the right side of the screen, he can use momentum to his advantage, and if he's strong enough, he can get the tackle out of the way. And most of the time when you ask the question, is Gary strong enough, the answer is going to be yes, and number 3 gets another sack. I know a lot of his stats aren't necessarily jaw-dropping, however you can't always look at stats to tell the whole story. Numbers can often be misleading, and he's a really talented player. I would rather look at a play like that and say, okay, this guy clearly has talent, than see someone else who gets a sack, but it wasn't really much of a talented sack, it was just a tackle not playing well. I like to watch plays like that, where a tackle actually does his job and does what he's supposed to do, but Gary's just better. That to me is way more impressive than just getting a regular sack. And of course, if something like that does happen, you have to be good enough to make sure that you can take advantage of that situation. But of course, you just can't bank on that, which is why a play like this is way more impressive in my opinion. This next play is actually going to be a very similar play to the last one that happened, but just with a slight difference, and it's that he's going to be on the bottom half of the screen instead of the top half of the screen. So as you see, once the play develops again, he's in a very similar situation. The tackle is making sure he gets over to the right side of the screen, and so Gary is then going to cut back to the left side of the screen and get a sack. So seemingly not a ton to talk about, right? You know, I've already shown that he can do something like that, so why am I showing again that he can do something like that? But the reason I like to bring that up is because he's on the other side of the screen, and he's on the other side of the field, meaning he's using his other hand to try to make this play. The last time he used his right hand to get the guy out of the way, but this time he's using his left hand, but he's still able to get the player out of the way and get to the quarterback. That's one of the reasons I like him. He can play anywhere on that field. He really can. This one wasn't quite as dominant as the last one, largely because the quarterback actually ran up into the pocket, so it made it slightly easier for Gary to make that sack, but it's still a good play by Gary. Obviously, there's not really such a thing as a bad sack. However, this one was definitely on the easier side of things, but I think it goes to show that he can really use any hand to try to give himself leverage. He's just a strong guy. Even with his non-dominant hand, he can still win his matchups, and that's why he ended up getting drafted 12th overall. This next play is going to actually be an even better example of showing how strong he is. Right now, he's on the edge, and he's going to end up getting blocked one-on-one against a tight end. The reason why you're leaving an edge rusher one-on-one blocked against a tight end is because it's going to be a run to the bottom half of the screen, so typically Gary wouldn't have too much to worry about here. This is the kind of play you just throw a tight end on him to make sure he doesn't hurt you, and that usually should be enough. However, when you're going up against a linebacker like Gary, that's not always going to be the case. Like as you see right now, the tight end is definitely creeping over to the bottom half of the screen. He knows it's going to be a run to the bottom half of the screen, so all he has to worry about is making sure Gary doesn't go to that direction. Gary can run around him all he wants, because if you run around him, well then you're just out of the play, so that's totally fine. You just want to make sure he doesn't get down. You don't want to let him get below you. And so as of right now, clearly that tight end's helmet is to his left of Gary, which is where he wants it. However, there's going to be one slight problem with it, and it's that Gary is a really strong guy. And so if you're not in position to make a block just the way you would typically want to, well, he can do something like this against you. Just basically plows over tight end and gets to the running back for no gain, basically. He's kind of one of those players that you basically have to always be on your game if you're going to go up against him. You can't take any slight things off or he will make you pay. When it comes to making sure you don't take anything off, this play is actually going to be a very good example of that. It's actually going to be a designed rollout, and here's how it's going to work. They're going to roll the quarterback out to the bottom half of the screen, and they're going to send that tight end out to run a flat route, and that's probably going to be his first read on this play. So if there is a designed rollout, typically you are going to need someone else who's going to block to the outside, and in this case it's going to be the halfback who's going to run out right there to try to block anyone who's in the area. So basically the way this works once the ball is snapped is you're going to want those two players right there to block the two Michigan players right over there, the bottom of which being Gary. However, one thing worth noting is look at where the halfback is. He's just not far enough down to where you would want to be. He's too far to the top half of the screen. It is going to be a designed rollout to the bottom half of the screen, so he is going to have to make sure that he gets down to that bottom half of the screen quickly. However, he just wasn't able to do it as quick as Gary was able to get over. But that's not the end of the world, right? Okay, so now he's not in great position, but he should still be able to at least lay one block and slow Gary down enough until the quarterback can realize what's going on and throw the ball away, right? I mean, especially on a designed rollout, you're going to be out of the pocket very quickly, so you can just throw the ball away. It's an incompletion, and it is third down actually, so that would be a pretty bad thing. However, it's not the end of the world. You could even potentially go for it on fourth down. And even if you don't want to throw it away, that tight end is finishing his route very quickly, so may have time to try to hit him. All you really need is a slight block to make this play at least not be a disaster. However, they can't even get that because Gary's just able to run by him. I mean, watching that play is like watching someone try to push a ball out of its direction. I mean, it just keeps running forward and is able to get to the quarterback. You can't blame the halfback for that second part because Gary's just so much bigger and stronger. You can't blame the halfback for getting out of position in the first place, but that really goes back to what I'm talking about earlier, where sometimes someone else is going to make a mistake and you have to capitalize on those mistakes. So not only can Gary create something out of nothing when an opposing player makes a good play, but he can also take advantage of when an opposing player makes a bad play. So I guess that's it, right? Gary's the kind of guy who can capitalize on when you make a mistake, and even when you make a good play, well, he can still often beat that as well. But what happens in some of these other situations? Like, for example, in a play like this, where the tackle on the right side of the screen, who typically would be blocking Gary, who's the edge rusher on the bottom half of the screen, is actually going to make sure that he blocks the interior lineman instead, as they're going to be double teaming that player. Instead, they're then going to send a tight end over to the bottom half of the screen to block Gary, and he has a running start now to block Gary, which means that it should be a pretty tough play for number 3. So as you see right now, they're basically both ready to collide, but the tight end had the running start, whereas Gary only had a couple of steps. Not to mention, if you're a tight end, there's not really too much you have to worry about here, because your quarterback is rolling out to the bottom half of the screen. You basically just have to block Gary in any direction. That's all fine. If you let him run over you and then he falls on top of you afterwards, that would actually be a great play. However, unfortunately for Rutgers, he's only going to do half of that. Gary just plows over him and is able to disrupt this play. It's just an incomplete pass, however it couldn't be much more than that because Gary did a great job of disrupting that one. That's really where his strength comes into play. If you have a tight end, even a tight end who has a running start, so it should be an advantage going against him, it can still be very bad news. You almost always have to have an offensive lineman against him. And when you have a player like that on your defensive line, it really opens up so much. Obviously in the NFL, tight ends and halfbacks are a lot better, so maybe teams could get away with that. However, I'm not even sure if that's the case. He really is. He pounces like a lion. That's what I really like about him. This play is going to be a good example of it, and it's going to be an RPO, but actually a little bit different kind of an RPO. Where what they're actually going to do is if the edge rusher crashes to the middle of the screen and take away what would typically be a regular handoff, well then they're actually going to hand it off, but have the running back go to the top half of the screen. And then therefore, if the edge rusher in the top half of the screen, which of course is Gary, which is why I'm bringing this up, goes to the top half of the screen, then the actual quarterback is going to keep it himself and run straight up the middle. That's the idea behind this. So now as you see, Gary does stay to the top half of the screen right over there, which means that the quarterback is going to keep it himself and run to the middle of the screen. That's the way this play is designed. And also worth mentioning, there's a chance that a couple of these RPOs aren't actual RPOs and they were always designed to have a certain thing happen. Like there was a chance that Indiana was going to have the quarterback run the ball all the way in this one, but it's set up to look like an RPO and it's trying to use an RPO type situation to fool opposing defenses. So either way, it's just as difficult for a guy like Gary who's the edge rusher on these types of plays. So as you see right now, he's definitely further up to the top half of the screen, taking away potential run to the top half of the screen. That's definitely where he's at right now. So of course, if you're a quarterback, you run to the middle of the screen. That's what you're supposed to do, but that's just not going to work out because of how good Gary is. Again, he's just like a lion. He pounces over and allows just 1 yard. One thing I do like about him is acceleration as well, and I think this play will do a very good job of showing it. He's going up against the right tackle right here, and after this play develops, I don't want to say he got beat, but the tackle definitely won his one-on-one matchup at the start of this play. I guess that would mean he got beat then, but regardless. But now what's key here is that Michigan State's quarterback doesn't really have anywhere to throw the ball to. I also find it fascinating that he doesn't end up stepping up in this pocket, and I'm assuming part of the reason for that is because he knows Gary does like to do the move where he pushes the tackle to the left side of the screen and then runs to the right side of the screen to try to get him. So instead he's going to try to roll outside of the pocket, but look at how fast Gary gets to his top speed and is able to disrupt this play. He hangs right with him and basically forces the quarterback to have to throw the ball away on a 3rd down and 5, which creates a punt situation. That's just a great athletic play, and those are a lot of the things that Gary is going to bring to the table for Green Bay. I like this pick personally. I mean, Green Bay has now added 3 players who I really like on that defensive line, and I really think that it could be very impactful through the rest of the season. I mean, the reality is they have Aaron Rodgers, so basically the idea probably is just get as good of a defense as you can get, and also just have Aaron Rodgers on the other side of the football. And obviously they have plenty of good offensive players as well, but you know what I'm trying to say. I think the league probably is a little bit more fun when the Packers are good, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how it plays out next season. But in terms of Rashan Gary, I definitely am very high on this pick, and I can definitely see it working out very well for the Packers.